We have one of the Portland Timbers on here with us. The Portland Timbers Major League Soccer team who is joining us. So Zarek Valentin is part of the Timbers, and they are in the Western Conference Finals right now. So the Western Conference Finals coming up later on this week when it begins, and we are really fortunate to have our own Riley Winn out there at the Timbers practice facility to talk to Zarek. So let's hit it. Let's head out there right now. Hello to Riley and Zarek.
All right, thanks, Greg. Riley Winn here. I'm here at Providence Park. I'm here joined by Timbers defender Zarek Valentin. Thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Zarek, professional soccer player, how long have you been playing soccer for?
I've been playing since I've been about 5 years old. I always wanted to follow my brother's footsteps, so I figured this was the best way to start.
So for professional soccer, obviously round-the-clock training, can you walk us through your training regimen for the days?
Yeah, it's no problem. We start at about 8:30 every day, 8:30 for 10. A lot of players get in before that. The team likes to have as much control over our lives as possible. I say that in the most positive way, meaning they serve us breakfast, they serve us lunch, and a lot of players take home boxes for dinner. I took 2. So they can basically control everything that we put into our body. They know exactly the work we're putting in before, during, and after training. So the team has a lot of control over our lives, and I think that they enjoy that. And ultimately, they can see when a player's maybe working too hard, working too little, that eventually regiment themselves after that.
Perfect. And so within your training, we heard that you are very into the fitness trackers and the metrics that come with it. Can you tell us how fitness trackers have really affected your workouts and your training regimen?
Yeah, I used to not be into it as much, but the older I've gotten, the more I've kind of used it as a kind of a bar set to essentially gauge how fit I am. Obviously, you know, I've played a decent chunk of games, and I've been very lucky to do so this year. So I've been able to gauge what my peak fitness is and how fast I can run, how I feel after the game, how I feel before the game, and maybe during a 3-game week. So I use those numbers and my speeds and essentially distance covered to gauge how fit I am. And maybe if I'm coming back from an injury, knock on wood, or maybe I haven't played a game because I was being rested or a coach decision, no matter what, I know essentially what I have to do to get my body back into peak fitness.
And during the games, you guys wear fitness trackers and these like man's ear type looking things. And I also heard that you take the most steps during a game. So can you kind of tell us how really being on the pitch and being active out there, how that affects you, those fitness trackers, as well as your boot?
Yeah, I call it a bro, actually.
Like Seinfeld.
Exactly. But yeah, essentially, it's not the most comfortable thing to wear. But again, it's one of these things where I really enjoy the data that's given to us. You know, I look at the amount of steps I take, and then I'll reference essentially how much we've had the ball, and I'll kind of use, you know, context clues to see how I handled situations, whether I didn't handle them right, whether we were under pressure and I took a lot of less steps, and maybe that has something to do with it. But a lot of those things, you know, I take into account on my own personal basis. But also, you know, a huge part of that is making sure I'm in the right footwear, the most comfortable footwear. Right now I wear the Nike Mercurial Superfly. And that actually statistically is the closest boot to my foot shape. So that benefits me comfort-wise, but also there's a cuff that's like the new cool thing that a lot of soccer players use right now, whether it's Prime Knit or Fly Knit, whatever it might be, that basically grips my Achilles, where I tore my Achilles about 4 years ago, and makes me feel as if my ankle's taped. So that all packaged into one has made me feel pretty decent on the pitch this year. And like I said, I use that to basically try to gauge my performance and try to learn as much as I can from all the numbers.
And speaking of, you know, cleats and shoes, you're wearing some pretty stylish kicks right now. Don't zoom in on mine, BJ, they're crap. But what's your favorite shoe of all time?
My favorite shoe of all time is the Jordan 3 Black Cement, followed by the Jordan 11 Concord. I actually got those yesterday. Very excited about that. So they should be, actually they're shipped already. Thank you very much, Nike. But besides that, my third favorite pair of shoes is a very inaccessible pair, which is actually the Nike Air Yeezy 2, the Red October model, which goes for a cool $7,000. So if you want to pay about 4 months rent, you can get yourself a pair of shoes. So I'll pass on those for now.
That's a lot of money for shoes. So with, you know, during the season, you guys are traveling a lot. What's your favorite gadget to take with you when you travel?
For me, it's actually turned into my phone. For a while, I know it sounds crazy, I'm sorry. I had an iPad. I bought the iPad 2, the original one for my roommate and I back in 2011. And I just didn't get as much use out of it because I had a laptop at the time for school because I had to type and obviously do a lot of my papers. And I found myself on my laptop a lot more. And ultimately, I found that I had to take it so much for school that my iPad became obsolete. And I've found that the screen's bigger on my computer, the resolution's better, and ultimately, I just don't feel I need to travel with 2 of those gadgets. Yeah. So that's been a huge kind of realization for me. But now that school is over, maybe it might be time to transition into one of them giant iPads that's essentially just like a mini
giant freaking screen.
I know, a mini little plasma screen TV or something like that.
So speaking of phones, we got to know, are you an Apple or Android guy?
I'm an Apple guy. I actually tried to make the switch to Android because I thought I was going to be some artsy-fartsy guy and start taking all these ridiculous pictures. Oh, the camera's so great. I probably took about 6 before I realized that I just wasn't prepared to make the switch. Whether it was like, I guess it would just be the speed of the phone or maybe the simplicity of an Apple phone. It just wasn't for me. And I got a lot of grief because I came in a locker room with my S9 Plus and I was shoving it into everyone's face, and I was Team Samsung for about 3 months. And now that I've retreated back, people have slowly realized I'm back on Team Blue. And suddenly I've been getting a lot of grief for that. So I've just had to eat it for a little bit. I had to eat actually, no, I didn't have to eat the cost of my phone because luckily someone bought it up and took off the rest of my tab. Thank you very much, Facebook. So that was a big switch for me that I've kind of since, gotten back on the Apple train.
So you were getting blown up and just ragged on in like some group text about getting back to the blue?
Oh, I've been crushed. Oh, for sure, because it was always green for a while. No one goes, whoa, blue messages? And I believe BJ was actually one of the first people that goes, whoa, dude.
BJ's our camera guy right now.
Shout out. But he goes, yo, you're blue again. And I go, let's not go there. Let's just continue the nice conversation we're having.
That's awesome. So, if you weren't playing professional soccer, what would you be doing?
Back when I was younger, I thought it would be a cool idea to be a pilot comedian.
Explain.
It's a dumb idea. But essentially I thought about it'd be cool to like fly a plane around and tell jokes, to like keep passengers entertained. But the more I flew, being an athlete, you just want to kind of rest at times. People want to zone out, throw in their headphones, and you don't want a comedian telling terrible jokes the entire flight. So I scrapped that idea very quickly. I would have loved to be an NBA player, but I was not good enough, tall enough, athletic enough, fast enough to do that. I actually almost gave up soccer for basketball when I was in 7th grade, but I realized I was on the B team for soccer and the national team, or the B team for basketball, national team for soccer. So I realized I think
you made the right decision.
I think I made a good decision. But besides that, I always wanted to be a sports center anchor. Just like Scott Van Pelt, Stuart Scott, John Anderson, Linda Cohn, all of them, are my favorite people growing up. And maybe one day I'll actually be an ESPN anchor.
That's awesome. So you talked about the NBA and basketball. So would that be your favorite sport outside of soccer?
Oh, for sure. I watch a lot of NBA games. I watch a lot of games that aren't my Sixers. I grew up obviously outside of Philadelphia. Huge Iverson fan. That's why I wore number 3 up until I came. But obviously, if you look up in the rafters, Clive Charles had his number retired and he wore number 3. And if you know anything about him and his impact in the greater Portland area, it's very welcomed and understandable. So, huge Iverson fan, huge basketball fan. I got to see LeBron James, his first game as a Laker here against Portland. Which
Opening night, right?
Yep, which was pretty fun. So, like I said, it's just been a fun few years following the Sixers as a team has really been trusting the process and enjoying that.
Trust the process. Shout out to Embiid out there, okay? So speaking of the rafters, we've also got the bleachers behind us. And for those of you watching that don't know, the Portland Timbers have the Timbers Army. Can you kind of tell us about that group and how they affect you guys when you're playing on the field?
Yeah, so the Timbers Army is obviously our support group, and most teams have one. Some teams in the MLS have a supporters group that are about 13 people, and we have one that's about a third of our stadium. So we're very lucky to have that. And I don't mean that as a jab to other teams. I just mean it more about how spoiled we are as Portland Timber players. So essentially, if you look from section 209 all the way over to 201, and I believe even bits of 210 and down to 110, all the way over, are on their feet chanting for 90 minutes. And actually before, because when we start to play these playoff games, they get there before the game, and they're going back and forth. The Seattle fans, whether that's Vancouver or whatever, they're basically giving us that energy all the way from warm-ups, giving us those good vibes, and it's something that's super unique, and we're super lucky to be part of that.
Perfect. Well, hey, so enough with the fun stuff. We've got some tough questions.
Ooh, okay,
some
let's
tough ones. So, when it comes to a pizza, what's more important, cheese or sauce?
I'm gonna go ahead and say sauce,
Why?
because I feel like it provides, I'm not gonna say wetness, but it provides density. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like when I've had pizza and there's been very little sauce, it's just been a lot of dough and cheese and it's very dry, and it's just not enough not enough.
That's why. It's just a cheesy breadstick.
Exactly. So you need the tomato sauce or pasta sauce, whatever you want to call it, on there, because I'm not a massive cheese fan, because I like to put let's say you put pepperoni or something on top. That to me is more important than necessarily a crazy amount of cheese.
Okay. Fair enough. And then, is a hot dog a sandwich?
I've been asked this before, and I say it's not. Because for me, a sandwich has two sides. A hot dog is essentially one piece that's connected. So imagine a taco. I wouldn't consider a taco a sandwich.
That is a very valid point. I've asked this to a lot of people, and this is the first time I've gotten that retort, and that is very valid.
I know. It's crazy. But yeah, I just, obviously outside of Philadelphia, you have the cheesesteak, that's a sandwich. 2 pieces of bread, smushed together, stuff in between. Hot dog's one piece, I don't trust it. And if someone thinks it's a sandwich,
you don't trust them?
No, immediately, done.
Well, Zarek, where can people go to, learn more about you, follow you, and your career here at the Timbers?
Yeah, I always try to say that I'm not the most, I would say, intense person to follow on Twitter. And I mean that in terms of, if you follow athletes, a lot of times they'll be tweeting about games and their performance and all that jazz. That's not really my style.
Okay.
I'm more of someone who will be fun-loving, tweet out a lot of jokes, some dumb observations or whatever it might be, just to try to keep it lighthearted and funny. I hope people will call me out if I tell a bad joke or don't do anything or if I'm trying too hard.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's just at my name on whatever platform you want to. LinkedIn, if you want to find me on LinkedIn.
Hey.
I've been trying to build my profile as I've graduated college recently, so that's been fun.
There you go.
But yeah, so like I said, if you're trying to follow someone that's super into soccer and you're going to get tips, that's not really me. But if you're going to follow someone who's going to try to post funny pictures and stuff like that, then that's more of me.
There you go. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us on DT Daily today. Good luck with the rest of the season. And back to you, Greg.
All right, thank you, Riley. That's Riley Winn out there talking to Zarek Valentin. Zarek joining us, obviously, from the Portland Timbers. That was a great interview. I think the idea of a pilot comedian is good, but also would drive everybody insane. So yeah, it's probably a good career choice to go with the playing for the Timbers instead. So best of luck for the Western Conference Finals, which are coming up here very soon. I believe on Friday of this week is the first game. So best of luck to the Portland Timbers for that. Or maybe it's Sunday. I don't know. We'll double check, but either way, good luck to them.